And that's another one I teased Terry on. Two people. I thought it was a cutesy song again, and I could see people going, oh, I really like that song.
It's been 2 long years since the world said goodbye to Tina Turner, the unstoppable queen of rock and roll, whose voice, spirit, and power defined generations. Millions wept as the news spread across the globe in 2023. A voice that had conquered pain, prejudice, and heartbreak had gone silent. But until now, one person had remained quiet. The man who stood beside her when the world turned away. Her husband, Erwin Bach. For 2 years, he spoke very little. No interviews, no public appearances, no memoirs. Just silence. The kind that comes from a love too deep and a loss too great to put into words. But now, that silence has been broken. In an emotional and deeply personal revelation, Erwin has finally opened up about Tina's final days, the love they shared, and the truth behind her final moments. What he revealed isn't just heartbreaking, it's profoundly human. Because behind the legend was a woman who fought harder than anyone knew. And behind that woman was a man who loved her enough to let her go. From their fairy tale life in Switzerland to the pain of her long battle with illness, Erwin's words pull back the curtain on the private life of one of music's greatest icons. He describes her final moments not as tragedy, but as peace. She wasn't afraid, he said quietly. She was ready, and she left surrounded by love. Now for the first time, we're hearing Tina Turner's story not from the spotlight, but from the silence that followed. The truth of her final chapter will leave you with tears in your eyes, and a deeper appreciation for the love story that defined her last years. For decades, Tina Turner was unstoppable, a blazing force of energy, resilience, and fire. From her electrifying stage performances to her powerful anthems like Proud Mary and What's Love Got to Do with It, she redefined what it meant to be a survivor. But behind the bright lights and roaring crowds, Tina longed for something simple. Peace. And in her later years, she finally found it. After decades of touring, performing, and surviving a lifetime of pain and reinvention, Tina stepped away from the stage in 2009. She had given everything she had to music, her voice, her energy, her youth. I don't need to prove anything anymore, she once said with a warm smile. I've had my time on the stage. Now I want to live, and so she did, in her own way, and on her own terms. Tina settled into a serene life in Küsnacht, Switzerland, with her husband, Erwin Bach, the man who had stood beside her for over 3 decades. The two lived in a beautiful estate overlooking Lake Zurich, surrounded by gardens, still water, and quiet hills. It was far from the flashing lights of Los Angeles or the chaos of her touring years, exactly the kind of peace Tina had spent her whole life searching for. She loved Switzerland because it gave her privacy, Erwin once said. People respected her space. She could walk by the lake without being chased, without being stared at. She could just be Tina. Their love story was extraordinary, not because it was dramatic or public, but because it was real. Erwin, a German music executive, met Tina in 1985 at a record label event. She was already a global superstar. He was a younger executive who saw her not as an icon, but as a woman. He was different, Tina said in her autobiography. He didn't need anything from me. He just loved me. That love became her anchor through everything that followed, through her health battles, her heartbreak, and her journey toward peace. In her final years, Tina's health began to decline. She had suffered a stroke in 2013, and in 2016, she was diagnosed with intestinal cancer. Then came kidney failure, a devastating turn that could have ended her life. But in an act of love and devotion that moved the world, Erwin donated one of his kidneys to her in 2017. He saved my life, she said simply. He gave me the gift of a second chance. It was a gesture that symbolized everything about their relationship. Quiet strength, unwavering love, and sacrifice. When someone loves you that deeply, Tina reflected, you understand what life is really about. After the transplant, Tina's energy never fully returned, but her spirit remained unbroken. She spent her days surrounded by music, books, and the beauty of her Swiss garden. She often sat by the window overlooking the lake, sipping tea, watching the sunlight dance on the water. She was at last content. Friends who visited her during this time said she was still vibrant, still Tina, but softer, gentler, at peace with everything. She would talk about gratitude, one friend recalled. Not about fame or money or awards, but about love, health, and the beauty of being alive for one more day. Tina continued to stay connected with her fans through her memoirs and documentaries. Her 2021 HBO documentary, Tina, was her final farewell to the public, a love letter to her fans and a closure to her extraordinary life story. In it, she said words that felt prophetic. It wasn't a good life. The good did not balance the bad, but I had the courage to step away and begin a new life, one that I finally enjoyed. Those who knew her best said that in her final years, Tina had already made peace with her past and with her future. She often spoke about her belief in reincarnation, about life being a cycle of lessons, love, and release. "I'm not afraid of death," she once said softly. "Death is part of life. I've had a beautiful one." And so, as her health continued to decline, Tina spent her last days the way she had always wanted, quietly, surrounded by the man who loved her unconditionally, in a home filled with music, laughter, and the stillness of peace. When the world lost Tina Turner in May 2023, millions grieved, but no one felt that loss more deeply than Erwin Bach, the man who had been her companion, her protector, and her greatest love for nearly 4 decades. For 2 years after her passing, he remained silent. He turned down interviews, declined documentaries, and stayed out of the public eye. Those who knew him said he was mourning quietly, honoring Tina the only way he knew how, by keeping her memory sacred. But recently, Erwin finally broke his silence. And what he shared about Tina's final days was both heartbreaking and deeply beautiful. According to Erwin, Tina's health had been fragile for some time. Despite her radiant smile and calm demeanor, she had been in pain, physically and emotionally. Years of illness had taken their toll, and though she never complained, Erwin could see her growing weaker. Still, he said, she never lost her spirit. Even when she couldn't move easily, she would hum songs to herself, he recalled. She had this way of finding joy in the smallest things. In her final weeks, Tina knew her time was near. She often spoke about the past, not with regret, but with acceptance. She would sit by the large window overlooking Lake Zurich, sometimes in silence, sometimes listening to the soft hum of the wind through the trees. She loved that view, Erwin said softly. It gave her peace. He described how she would hold his hand and smile, even when she was too weak to speak. She wasn't afraid, he revealed. She had seen enough of life to understand that death wasn't an ending, just a change. Tina's home during those last months was filled with music. Erwin made sure of that. Her favorite records, from Otis Redding to the Rolling Stones, played quietly in the background. And every evening, as the sun dipped below the lake, Erwin would sit beside her, sometimes reading aloud, sometimes saying nothing at all. She didn't need words, he said. She just needed to know she wasn't alone. As the days passed, her body grew frailer, but her spirit never dimmed. Friends who visited said she was luminous, as if she had made peace with everything that once haunted her. One of her close companions shared that Tina even joked in her final weeks. She said, "If I go now, I'm leaving this world on a high note." That was Tina, always strong, always smiling. When the end came, it was quiet, just the way she wanted. Erwin said that Tina passed peacefully in her sleep, with him by her side, holding her hand. The room was filled with soft light, her favorite flowers nearby, and her beloved view of Lake Zurich just beyond the window. She looked beautiful, he said through tears. Even then, it was like she was glowing. I whispered that I loved her, and she smiled, just a small smile, and then she was gone. After her passing, Erwin stayed in that room for hours, unable to move. The silence was deafening, he said. I had been her rock for so long, but when she left, I realized she had been mine. In the days that followed, Tributes poured in from all over the world, from presidents, musicians, and fans whose lives Tina had touched. But Irwin stayed away from the cameras. She hated noise, he explained. She wanted peace, even in death. So I gave her that. He kept her ashes in their Swiss home for a time, before honoring her wish to have part of them scattered over the lake she loved so much. On a quiet morning, surrounded by close friends, Irwin walked down to the water, the air still and golden. "She's home now," he whispered. Breaking his silence 2 years later, Irwin said he decided to speak not for fame, but for love. "People saw Tina the legend," he said softly. "But I saw Tina the woman, kind, funny, fragile, and endlessly strong. She taught me what love really means." He ended his statement with words that echoed Tina's own philosophy. She believed life was about energy, that love never dies, it just changes form. And now I feel her with me every day, in the wind, in the light, in the music. And for those who loved Tina Turner, those words bring comfort, because even though she's gone, her spirit, her strength, and her song will never fade. Tina Turner's life was filled with triumphs and tragedies. But if there was one thing that gave her story its truest meaning, it was love. Not the fleeting, fragile kind that fame often brings, but a love that stood the test of time, pain, and distance. The love between Tina Turner and Erwin Bach wasn't born out of glamour. It was born out of kindness, patience, and the healing power of being truly seen. Their paths crossed in 1985 at Düsseldorf Airport. Tina, then 46, was already a global superstar, having rebuilt her life and career after years of abuse and heartbreak. Erwin Bach, a 30-year-old German music executive working for EMI, was assigned to pick her up. It was a simple moment. No fanfare, no red carpet, but something shifted that day. Tina later described it as love at first sight. She said, "He was so handsome, so calm, so kind." It wasn't fireworks, it was peace. At first, their relationship drew skepticism. Tina was older, famous, and cautious. Erwin was younger, grounded, and soft-spoken. But he never chased her fame. He simply loved her as Anna Mae Bullock, the woman behind the legend. For Tina, that was everything. "He didn't need my success," she once said. "He needed me." Their connection deepened over time. While the world saw Tina as a symbol of strength, Erwin saw her vulnerability, the quiet, gentle soul who still carried the weight of her past. He was patient with her trust, never rushing her, never trying to fix her pain. "He gave me the freedom to heal at my own pace," Tina once told Oprah Winfrey. "He made me feel safe for the first time in my life." The couple's relationship blossomed quietly over the years. They moved to Switzerland in the mid-1990s, seeking privacy and simplicity. Away from the spotlight, they built a life filled with love, laughter, and music. They cooked together, traveled, and spent quiet evenings watching movies. For Tina, this was the life she had always dreamed of. Not fame, not fortune, but peace beside someone who truly understood her. In 2013, after nearly 3 decades together, Tina and Erwin married in an intimate ceremony on the banks of Lake Zurich. It wasn't a grand celebrity affair. It was elegant, peaceful, and deeply emotional. Guests described it as a celebration of devotion. Tina wore a stunning green and black Armani gown, while Erwin looked on in tears. When asked why they waited so long, Tina smiled and said, "We already had everything." The wedding was just a beautiful final touch. Their bond was tested in ways most couples never face. When Tina suffered a stroke just 3 weeks after the wedding, Erwin stayed by her side day and night, helping her walk again. When she was later diagnosed with intestinal cancer and kidney failure, he didn't hesitate. He offered her one of his kidneys. "It was not a sacrifice," Erwin said. "It was a gift of love." That act of unconditional devotion stunned the world, but for Tina, it only confirmed what she already knew, that Erwin was her soulmate. "He gave me life twice," she said. "Once when he came into my world and once when he saved it." Their final decade together was one of quiet joy. They spent their days in their Swiss home, tending to the garden, listening to classical music, and enjoying the serenity of nature. "We didn't need words," Erwin once shared. "We just needed to be near each other." Even as her health declined, Tina's love for Irwin never wavered. In her last interviews, she spoke of him with warmth and gratitude. "I had a hard life," she said, "but the second half was beautiful because of him." After her passing, Irwin admitted that letting her go was the hardest thing he'd ever done. But he found comfort in the words she had once told him. "When I'm gone, don't cry for me. Just know that I'm free." Now every morning, Irwin still walks the path they used to take by the lake. He says he feels her presence in the wind, in the sunlight, in the stillness of the water. "She's not gone," he said quietly. "She's just home." Their love story wasn't about fame, age, or perfection. It was about finding peace after pain. And in the end, Tina Turner and Irwin Bach proved that real love doesn't end when life does. It only changes form. When Tina Turner passed away in May 2023, the world didn't just lose a performer, it lost a force of nature. Her voice was more than music. It was survival, defiance, and freedom rolled into sound. For 6 decades, Tina's thunderous energy and soulful heart rewrote what it meant to be a woman in rock. But even in death, her story didn't end. Her legacy continues to shine. A reminder that power, resilience, and grace can coexist in one extraordinary human being. From the cotton fields of Nutbush, Tennessee, to the grand stages of Wembley Stadium, Tina's life was proof that pain can become purpose. Her journey began as Anna Mae Bullock, a small-town girl with big dreams, raised in hardship and longing for love. But when the world discovered Tina Turner, everything changed. She brought electricity to every stage she touched. Her raspy voice, her boundless energy, and her fierce independence made her unstoppable. But her legacy isn't just about her voice, it's about her fight. When she walked away from Ike Turner in 1976 with nothing but her name, she wasn't just leaving a marriage, she was reclaiming her soul. The entertainment industry expected her to fade away. Instead, she came back stronger than ever. Her 1984 album Private Dancer wasn't just a comeback, it was a rebirth. Songs like What's Love Got to Do With It and Better Be Good to Me weren't just hits. They were anthems of empowerment, echoing the voice of every woman who had ever been told she wasn't enough. That message outlived her. Every performer who stands tall in their truth, from Beyoncé to P, and K, from Mary J. Blige to Lady Gaga, owes a piece of their strength to Tina Turner. Beyoncé herself once said, "Tina is the reason I perform the way I do. She showed me what it means to own the stage." Beyond music, Tina's legacy also lives in her courage to find peace. In her final years, she taught the world that stepping away from fame doesn't mean fading, it means freedom. She traded flashing lights for Swiss sunsets, chaos for calm, and the sound of applause for the sound of love. Her home in Küsnacht became her sanctuary, a place where she meditated, gardened, and finally found the serenity that life had once denied her. Tina also left behind a spiritual legacy. A longtime Buddhist, she often said that chanting and meditation saved her life. Her teachings of compassion, forgiveness, and strength still inspire millions around the world. The real power, she once said, comes from within. You have to find it, nurture it, and never let anyone take it away. After her death, tributes poured in from every corner of the globe. Streets lit up with candlelight vigils, her music filled the airwaves again, and fans danced and cried in equal measure. Former co-stars, musicians, and world leaders called her a beacon of resilience. Oprah Winfrey, one of her closest friends, said through tears, "Tina didn't just survive, she transformed suffering into triumph. She taught us how to keep moving forward no matter what. Even now, her presence lingers. Her songs continue to soar through generations. Her story continues to inspire women breaking free from fear, and her words continue to heal. There's a reason she's remembered not just as a rock star, but as a survivor, a woman who lived life on her own terms and found joy in the end. Irwin Bach, her devoted husband, carries that legacy every day. He said that even though she's gone, her spirit fills their home. "Sometimes when the wind moves through the trees, I hear her voice," he said softly. "It feels like she's still singing, just from another place." Tina Turner once said, I didn't want to just survive. I wanted to live. And that's exactly what she did. She turned pain into power, loneliness into light, and music into immortality. Her story will continue to echo across time, because legends don't die. They evolve. Somewhere beyond the spotlight, maybe Tina is still dancing, barefoot, smiling, free at last. Her laughter carried by the wind, her music still shaking the heavens. And if you listen closely, you can almost hear her whisper what she told the world so many times before. You're simply the best.